Okay, everyone. Hello. In this first talk, I would like to, just for a few minutes, introduce what I regard as being good academic style. So, in this lecture, I'd just like to talk about one or two, what I would regard as being key aspects of academic style. Academic style, we would say, is formal, it is precise, it is objective, and a phrase that I will introduce in a few minutes' time, we would say that academic style is writer responsible rather than reader responsible. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll explain in a few minutes' time. In order to introduce these concepts, what I would just like you to do for a minute or two is have a look at these two paragraphs. Essentially, they're saying the same thing. The content is the same, the topics are the same, but they're expressed in very different ways. The first one is obviously academic. The second one is obviously non-academic in style. So what I would just like you to do, take a couple of minutes, take a minute and a half, just to have a quick look at them and try and think a little bit about what the key differences are in terms of perhaps vocabulary, conventions, perhaps structure, those kinds of things. Okay, everyone, this is what I think. Let's have a quick look and a quick analyse of the non-academic text, first of all. And I've highlighted just maybe 3 or 4 key things that I think are important. First of all, if we have a look at the top, we have a contraction. Don't rather than do not. And this is very characteristic of non-academic writing. Academic writing would expect you to express those words in full. Do not. So that's a contraction. The second thing that I'd like to highlight is this: which thinkers, where is your reference? So we have a claim here, sort of highlighted in red. Some thinkers say that life has some kind of big purpose, often found in a sort of religious afterlife. Okay, well, perhaps, but which thinker said that? Where is the reference supporting this particular claim? There isn't one. Academic writing would expect you to provide one, to actually state explicitly which thinkers you're talking about. If you sort of move around then in a sort of clockwise direction, you can see that I've highlighted the word big. I could have highlighted a number of other words and phrases, for example, sort of. Very kind of informal, very simplistic vocabulary. Something like considerable would be better here, I think. Um, and if we move around again, and we look at this section of the paragraph, I think that this is a major, major flaw, I would say. And it's not something that you would expect at all to see in good academic text. The problem, essentially, is that it's very, very subjective. I think that that's not what we're looking for. You're looking to present your own idea, your own argument based on evidence. Where is your evidence for this claim that the universe may be moving towards some kind of final purpose? Again, you need references, you need sources, you need evidence to back up that claim and present it in a much more objective kind of way. So this is extremely subjective writing. And finally, moving way back round, coming up almost to 12 o'clock, as it were, discussed this issue for a long time. Well, it's simply very imprecise writing. It's not precise. What do you mean for a long time? 5 years, 50 years, 100 years, 500 years, 5,000 years? We have absolutely no idea. So that's very, very imprecise writing, saying exactly what you mean. So those are some of the kind of characteristics of non-academic texts and non-academic writing. Let's move on now to have a quick look at some of the good features of an academic text. And again, we'll start up at the top and move round almost in clockwise fashion. First of all, you can see the big difference. Here, the academic writer has actually provided two good quality academic sources backing up the claim that they're making. Certain thinkers have suggested that life has an ultimate purpose, often found in a religious afterlife. So there's references provided. There is evidence presented to back up and support the claim. If we have a look here, current objective evidence indicates. Now what the writer is doing here is using good academic style and is presenting claims and evidence in a very, very objective way. Rather than saying, I think that this latter position is indeed more realistic, they're indicating in their phraseology that they are basing that claim on evidence, external evidence, rather than their own personal subjective opinion. And the final thing that I'm going to go on to talk about, not necessarily here, is that formal, precise vocabulary is used. Unfortunately, this point doesn't go to the word that I'm looking for, but it should have gone up to ultimate, final purpose, rather than something like big, which is very vague and very, very general in the kinds of words that it can express. So those are sort of three interrelated key aspects of good academic text and good academic writing. And I think the key one for me is the way that conclusions and claims are presented, an avoidance of I, basing all of your major claims, all of your major conclusions on external objective sources of evidence. So, just a very quick run through of what we would expect you to provide in good academic writing in terms of academic style. First of all, things to avoid. Avoid contractions. Don't. Can't. Avoid two-part phrasal verbs, things like end up, put off, sit down, stand up. You're going to try and find one good word alternative to those phrasal verbs. And try also to avoid colloquialisms, informal, slangy type of language, thing, stuff, etc. So what you're trying to go for is good, formal, Latin-based vocabulary. So for instance, rather than saying ask for, you're going to choose request instead. Now, if you don't know if something is formal, if something is Latin-based, obviously one of the best ways of finding out is to go and get access to a good monolingual, and I don't mean translation, I mean monolingual English to English dictionary. These types of dictionaries very often, well not very often, always will be able to indicate whether a word is considered to be formal or informal, very often with symbols like this for formal or inf for informal. Another good tool that you can use, and this is something that I'm going to be introducing in a later video, is a thesaurus, a synonym dictionary, which can help you to find words that kind of essentially mean the same thing as the keyword or the word that you are looking to replace. But more on that in a later video. Precise use of vocabulary, which is the next aspect I want to highlight. As I said a little bit earlier, please try to avoid general, vaguish, imprecise writing. So for instance, please don't write that a stethoscope, the kind of thing that doctors use to check out your chest to see if you've got an infection. Please don't write that it is a type of thing which is used to check people's chests. It's informal, but worse than that, it's actually very imprecise, vague writing. If you have a look at this replacement sentence, you can see that it's instantly much better. It's not a type of thing, it is specifically a medical instrument. And what's it specifically used for? It's used to sound, a little bit more precise medical terminology there, people's lungs for potential respiratory problems. So you're saying exactly what you mean here, and you're saying exactly what the stethoscope is used for. Used to check people's chest can mean, well, anything. What are you checking? The amount, quantity, or quality of chest hair? Are you checking for something external, internal? What are you checking for? You're very vague, very imprecise. The second sentence, much better in that respect. Objective writing. Now, as I said, please try to avoid, in general, although you don't need to do this all the time, but in general, try to avoid words like I, me, myself, in my opinion, in my view. This is an important thing. Oh, here I go. This is an important thing. This is an important statement which I would like you to pay attention to. Readers, academic readers, will normally assume that if you don't reference an idea, it is your idea. So if you're not explicitly referencing it, it's going to be your idea, your concept, your voice, as it were. So you don't need to clearly and explicitly state this. So please don't write this, in my opinion. Ogilvy's ideas have considerable merit, or this, I think that. Much, much, much better to do something like this. Ogilvy's ideas have considerable merit, or even better, all of the available evidence, again, you've based your claim on external evidence, suggests that Ogilvy's 2010 ideas have considerable merit. So again, good objective writing, the language reflecting the fact that you have based those claims on outside evidence. Finally, the last point that I would like to make in this very short talk, good academic writing is writer responsible. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that means that you as a writer, rather than the reader, are responsible for making your writing as clear as possible to the reader. Importantly, this means that you're expressing the relationships, the logical relationships between ideas in your text as clearly as possible. And for that, you're going to have to use quite a lot of what I like to call reader guiding language. Let's have a look down here at a very bad example. Have a look for a second or two. And we can see instantly that the relationship between the ideas is not clear for the reader. We can kind of guess, but we shouldn't have to guess. It's the writer's job to take all guesswork out of the equation. The writer does the work for us. And if we look down at this much better version, you can see that I've highlighted the good reader guiding language. Immigration has often been blamed for increased levels of unemployment and decreased levels of wages in the host country. However, as soon as the reader sees this, he knows that a contrasting idea is coming up, signals a contrast with the previous idea. There is little evidence to suggest this happens on a significant scale. So this phrase, again, very nice objective style of writing, tells the reader again that your claim is based on evidence. It's not just your idea that's come out of your head without much thought or much research. You're basing this claim on external researched evidence. So two forms, slightly different reader guiding language, which helps the reader follow the logical direction of your writing. And that basically is it. In the next video, we're going to be looking at academic style part 2. We're going to be moving on to look a little bit more at grammar, grammatical structure, syntax. Very important as far as I'm concerned. And we're going to be looking at two interrelated aspects of academic style from a sort of grammatical perspective: noun phrases and nominalization. It might seem to be boring. Grammar is not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but I think and I hope that in this video I'll try to make the connection between grammar and the expression of concepts and ideas, because these two things are very closely connected in academic writing and academic style. Grammar is not just grammar. The kinds of grammar that academic writers use and good academic writers use reflects the kind of conceptual the conceptual undercurrent or the conceptual importance of what they're trying to express in their writing. So grammar, noun phrases, nominalization specifically, very important in academic writing. And that will be in the next video. Thank you.